And that will be on our YouTube channel, but also on our website as well. Okay, so let's get going. I'm going to share my screen with you just now. I'll just make sure I've got all the other windows open here. Okay, I do, good. I actually don't see the chat window, so if we can use the Q&A one, that would be great. Okay, so for those of you who are brand new, I'm just going to go through some of the basics of the system here, and I'll take any questions that we've got as well. Any questions we don't manage to get through, we'll follow up by email, but we don't have that many people today, so hopefully we should be able to get through them all. We don't have a time limit here, so we'll just keep going until the questions stop, or until my voice wears out. So you should see on my screen now, we've got a demonstration account here that we typically use for a private nursery. So it would have a baby room, a toddler room, and a 3 to 5 room here. Now, your nurseries or schools may be set up completely different to this, but this is just a way to organize the children's profiles. You might have completely different rooms, and you can have different pictures. You can name these all, anything you want, and it's all done through the configuration section at the top of your screen up here. So if I click into my 3 to 5 room, we'll see all the children that are in our 3 to 5s, and here they go. So we've got maybe 10 or 12 children here. You can have as many children here as you want. There's no limit to that. And each one of these represents a child's profile. So if we, oh, didn't mean to come back out of that one. If we go into one of our children, let's choose Alistair. We'll get to see all of his observations. So here's what we see. So over on the left-hand side, we've got some of the basic information for Alistair here. And on the right, we've got all the content that has been created for him. So the content that can be in his profile can be separated into 3 different categories. And those are, you can see these green buttons here. So we've got observations, stories, and parent contributions. So parent contributions are just obviously the things that parents would create at home and they would upload to their child's profile. And those will all in the sort of purple color. In blue, we've got what we call stories. And stories and observations are both created at the nursery by teachers or practitioners. The difference is an observation is one that's linked to a framework. It's a learning event. And a story is an experience and something that you would like to share, but not necessarily linked to any learning or any framework. And if I scroll down, what we can see our first piece of content we've got is this observation. So you can see here it says it's an observation. Each observation, which are the ones with these green borders, they have another tab called Outcomes and Progression Pathways. And I'm going to focus in a little bit on that in a second. We've also got the date the observation was created. We've got a description, and this is the part that's entered by the practitioners and teachers. We've got evidence on the right-hand side in the form of photos or videos. We've just got one picture here, and this is a picture of these apples. It lets you know who created the observation, and there's a parent section down the bottom here. Parents can log in to their own child's profile, and they can leave a comment, or they can click on this like button to acknowledge that they've seen it. Parents only see their own child's or children's profile. They could have more than one child in a school or nursery. So parents can log in and do that. We just keep on scrolling down, we'll see a couple of different other things. Here's a parent contribution here. So parent contributions, as I say, are purple, and they're very similar to an observation, but they're a bit more streamlined. They can just have a description and a picture. And then if I scroll down a little bit further, there's another observation there, but here's one down here that's a story. And as I say, a story is just an experience that you maybe want to share with parents or with whatever happening in the nursery back home. So let's scroll back up the top, because this view here, this is how the practitioners and staff 95% of the time will interact with the system. They'll realize that Alistair's doing something we want to observe or record, come to his profile, and we can click on either one of these buttons up the top, which is add an observation or add a story. So I'm going to start with a story because that's a more simple option. So we click on add story here, and this takes you into the process. And I've got the same sort of script all the time, but we try and keep this as simple as we can, because we've realized that not all of you are as comfortable or familiar with technology and things online as some other people. So there's nothing you can do here that will delete all your children or wipe out all the parents or ruin the whole account. So all you have to do is follow these instructions, and anything you do here, you can always undo that. So please do remember that. So the first box just says, what were they doing? And this is where, as a team, you guys might like to have a discussion about, well, what does a good story or observation look like? What sort of things should we be documenting and recording? How often should we do that? Because it's important to set the parent expectations on how often they should be receiving stories and observations and things like that. So let's put something really basic in. So after me saying that you should have a really good high quality story, let's just say that Alistair was taking part in a group activity. So I've got zero imagination when it comes to doing these demonstrations. So Alistair taking part in a group activity, you would do something a lot more than that. We do have spell check, and we can also remove any typos that we've got. The next box here is called what did they learn? So the reason we have this box here is because some nurseries, schools and local authorities even suggested it might be useful to teachers and practitioners if we could allow them to focus on the actual learning that was taking place in this activity or observation. And you can do that by using this box here. You'll see that it says that it is optional because some nurseries just prefer to put everything in the one box, but some do like to have it separated. Any of the boxes that you see here that say optional, if you don't enter any content into them, the parent doesn't see a big empty space where there should be something there. They only see the content you have entered. So don't worry that you have to fill everything in. This is all up to you and your individual nurseries and schools. So I'm just gonna leave this one blank. The next section is the child's voice. This is also optional, and the way that this can be used, and the way we certainly use it in our nursery, because we like to try and take the observations with the children, make them a part of it as much as we can. And at this point, we can turn the iPad or the tablet towards the child and say, how did you feel about what you've just done here? They can click on these faces, and if they say anything, we can note that down in here. But again, this is an optional section for you. The date is automatic, so that's today's date. We have got now the option to upload photos or videos. So I'm on my computer here, so it's just going to allow me to choose some things from my computer. So I'm just going to pick a couple of pictures that I already have. I've got a deer. If you're using an iPad or a tablet and you get to the stage, it will say, do you want to upload, do you want to take a new picture? Or do you want to upload one that's already on the device's camera roll? And you can, so you can do that. You can also upload videos, as I say. Now, bear in mind that if you're uploading a video file usually will be a much larger size than a photo. Excuse me. So if you're trying to upload a 15-minute sports day video and you've got a poor connection, it's going to be quite difficult and it's going to take a lot of time, and you want to try and avoid that sort of thing. So keep your videos reasonably short, 1 or 2 minutes. We find that works perfectly for us in our nursery, because all you really want to do is provide evidence of this experience or this learning event that's happening. You can also attach files, so it may be, so it could be PDFs or Word documents or Excel files or PowerPoints, whatever it would be. This was really useful throughout the lockdown period when nurseries were closed, because nurses could use this to keep in touch with parents. They could create a story on a Monday and attach some things like activity sheets, giving pointers of what the parents could do with the children this week, and they can maybe do videos to explain that as well. So it was really, really useful, and this is still, functions are obviously still here, so you can use this too. You then choose whether you want the observation to be published or saved for later. If it's published, it's visible to the parents. So if we publish this now and the parent happens to log in, they would be able to see what we've published. So don't publish something you don't want a parent to see, but even if you've published it, you can always unpublish it, and you can make it unpublished and save for later as a draft. So don't worry, it's not set in stone, you can always make changes. A really useful feature, we find this so useful, is this publish this observation for other children. It's hidden away down here, so hopefully on if you're watching on phones or whatever, you'll be able to see this, but publish this observation for other children. If we check this box, because quite often we'll have a group of children taking part in this activity. You know, we said here Alistair was taking part in a group activity, so we don't want to have to go through this process for every single child. What we're showing here is a list of all the children in the room or the class, and we can choose from here. So we can say that Charlie, Davina, Graham and Daniel were involved in this activity as well. And this will copy everything that we've done over to their profiles too. You do have to be careful because we have said here, we've got Alistair's name. And we don't necessarily, or we don't actually want Alistair's name to appear in the profiles of these children. So the way we can get around that is we can follow the instructions that are in this blue box up the top. They're always there, and it says to replace the child's name in the box below with the code of first name. And what this does is when we do this, so it's all one word, all lowercase inside square brackets. When we do this, it will replace this with Charlie, Davina, Graham, or Daniel was taking part in a group activity. And it's a super quick way to personalize the stories or the observations that you're taking. And it doesn't, what you need to make sure of, we haven't used it here, but it doesn't include things like he or she or any sort of gender like that. We have to be careful with that because it won't include that. So have a think when you are when you're doing that. Now, I just had a question in. Is it Syndikia? Hopefully I've pronounced that correct. You've just asked why is the next step button gone? So you're getting a little bit ahead of us here because the next steps only appear for observations. So we'll get to that in a second. I'm assuming you can all see this. And Syndikia, sorry, you had another one about the picture quality. Picture is not so good on learning journals, like it turned out blurry. Maybe if you contact us separately, we can help you with that because I'm not sure what, I mean, maybe if you can get some examples, we could try and help you with that. Okay, sorry, so we go back to our observations anyway, and we'll come back to Alistair's profile. When it comes up, here we go. So there's a story that we just did. Alistair was taking part in a group activity. You can see we've got our pictures of a badger, our deer, and a giraffe are all there. And this is now published. It says it's published here. So that means it's visible to the parents. But this story is now published and it's done. And if we want to, we could edit it, but it's available now for the parents to see. So that's a story. Let's just do the same thing again for an observation. We'll zip through this one though, because it's very, very similar. So we click on add observation at the top of the page here. And you'll see the observation process is very, very similar. So we say what was happening. So let's say that this time Alistair was learning to count to 10. So again, very basic, spell checked handy. Learning, child's voice, that's all the same. And here's where Syndikia, hopefully, was asking about the next steps. So on an observation, you can add in next steps. The idea is that you can set a goal or a target based on what you're doing or what you've seen in your description at the top. The mistake, just to give people a warning, the mistake that we made in our nursery at the beginning was we would add a next step in every single time we took an observation. And what we quickly found was that we had 30 or 40 different next steps for each child. And it was very, very difficult for us to manage that and keep on top of it. So the way we do it now is at the beginning of a term or a year, we create 2 or 3 next steps for each child, and we use those throughout the year to work towards as our goals. And that works really well for us because it's manageable, we can keep on top of it all. We never find that things are running away with us. So if you want to put a next step in, this is where you would do it. And we'll come back to that in a second. Photos and attached files are exactly the same. So you can put in photos or videos. So I'll just pick another 4 animals. We'll have newt to crocodile. Let's do that. There we go. And once you've got those uploaded, you can move on to the next. So the difference between adding in stories or observations is that a story, as we say, is an experience, but an observation is linked to a framework. So when we come on to the next stage, we're shown or given the opportunity to link to a framework. Alistair here is on the Curriculum for Excellence R level, that's our framework. So a lot of you will be in Scotland here. If you're in England, this would be, you would see the EYFS here. And what we're shown down below are our curricular areas. So their level is split into health and wellbeing, numeracy and maths, etc. We're in health and wellbeing at the moment. So down below, we're seeing all the outcomes for health and wellbeing. And they're separated into what we call organisers or just subcategories when it's activity and health, activity and sport. And here's all the outcomes here. and we just attach whichever one applies to the observation we're doing with these green buttons on the right-hand side. And you can have as many of these as you want. You can go across different areas too. You'll see some of these have got numbers on them, 2s and 1s. What this tells you is this number 2 tells you that Alistair has had 2 observations linked to this statement already. So it gives you an idea of coverage. So the ones where we've got 0s here, if you can see those, we know that we've got no experience or evidence of that there. So it's a way to gauge coverage. You can see where there may be gaps, and as you and the practitioners get to work with the children, you'll be able to see where those areas are. You can go, as I say, you can go across different curricular areas. So we'll go into numeracy and maths here and add in another outcome. And then all the outcomes that we've added, they appear at the top of the page here. So here they are. Remember, I had 2 health and wellbeing, numeracy and maths one. And before we move on, we're asked to do a little traffic light assessment. By default, you'll see this as red, amber, green, although you can change that in your settings and you can change the colors too. Parents won't see this part of the system. So any assessments that you make with these traffic lights, they won't be seen by parents. You can choose to share with them, but by default, they wouldn't see that. And you can just click on these buttons to make your selections here. Have a discussion. This is another thing where it's individual to your own nursery. What does red mean? What does amber mean? What does green mean? Those are things that you can decide yourselves. So once we've got our ratings, we can move on to the next stage. And this is where we can add in an additional layer of tracking and monitoring. So not everybody will see this because this was dependent on framework. Some local authorities and some nurseries and schools would like to have an additional layer in addition to what we just saw with the experiences and outcomes. And this is an opportunity to add that. And because our system is really flexible, we can add in custom content for you. So what we're seeing here, for example, are some I can statements that have been added in by this local authority. If you want to have something different, we can actually customize that for you. So if that's something that's of interest, get in touch. If you're on the EYFS at this stage, you'll actually see the characteristics of effective learning. Here they are here, split into their 3 areas, but they all work exactly the same way. You can just add them in with the green button on the right-hand side, and then you do your traffic light assessment. This section is absolutely optional, so you don't have to add anything in here if you don't want to. So we can actually just move straight on to the next stage. And this stage is about connecting it to previous observations. So in our last stage here, what we are shown over on the right-hand side in this panel are the active next steps that this child has. So Alistair only currently has 1. Keep practicing counting to 10 without any mistakes. And this is where, if you remember, I said that in our nursery at the beginning, we had 30 or 40 different next steps for each child and it became unmanageable. Well, you can maybe imagine what that would look like. So if we have, we've only got 1 here, but if we had 30 of these, it'd be difficult for us to keep up with these every time. What the system is asking us though here is, does the observation we've just done, that Alistair was learning to count to 10, does that contribute towards or does it achieve any of his active next steps? And if it does, we can link up the observation from back in August with today's observation. And we do that just with this linking button on the right-hand side. It's just this plus button here. And that means they're now linked up. And we can check this box here to say that the next step's been completed. And if we do that, that means that the next time we take an observation, we won't be shown this next step because we're saying we've achieved it now and we've got the evidence of that. But it might be that Alistair's not quite there, he's not quite secure in it, hasn't quite grasped it. So you can uncheck this box. We can still say that we're contributing toward this next step, but we're not quite there yet. And our observation today becomes a milestone for Alistair on the way to achieving that. I'll not link this one up just now though. And then again, publish it or save it for later, and you can publish it for other children too. So let me just click on the finish button here, and that will publish this observation for Alistair. We'll take it back to his profile, and there it is. This is published observation. We can click on this box here that says learning outcomes and progression pathways. And if we scroll down, we can see the ones that we've already attached. We get to see this red, amber, green box, but the parents wouldn't see this. This is only for us. And if we want to, we can edit this observation. We can go back into it. We can upload different pictures. We can change those, and we can go and change our experience and outcomes and our red, amber, greens if we want to. So we don't have to go through that whole process again. We can just go into one stage, save and exit that. There we go. So those are now available. So that is 95% of how practitioners and teachers will use the system. If we look over on the left-hand side here, we can see that we've got some information about Alistair's parents, or the ones that are connected to this account anyway. And we've got two here. We've got John and Catherine. And we can see that John last logged in earlier on today, but Catherine, it's been a while since Catherine's logged in. And you might find that one parent logs in more than the other. But also, if we scroll down here, we can see these two cards. This is quite a new feature. We've got these two cards here. One for Catherine, one for John, and it tells you when they last logged in. But the thing to note is that these little labels appear at the point that the parent has seen up to. So it's in between this picture of the badger and the picture of the apples. So we know that John logged in after we'd published this one of the apples, so he's seen that one. And we know that he's not seen this one with the badger because we've just completed that, and because the card is under there. So the next time that this parent logs in, this card will jump up to the top of the page because we know that they've seen that. So if you're ever unsure of what a parent is aware of or what they've seen up to, this will help you to do that. And actually, while we're here, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to log out and I'm going to log in as a parent so you can get to see what a parent sees. So parents log in the same way. They have a username, password, and PIN number. There is also a parent app, you might be aware of that. And if you're not, please do tell your parents because it's really useful for the parents. They can download that for free. It's on the App Store or the Google Play Store. And when we log in as a parent, you can see it looks very similar, but we've got some differences. So up the top, we just have, all they can do is they can look at their children's profiles. So John here happens to have 3 children in his account. He's got Alistair and David in the nursery, and Burton's actually a primary school pupil. There's a messages section and the downloads. We'll come to those in a second. And you can see all the observations down below. He's got his 3 category buttons, the same as we do as staff. And these actually act as filters. I don't think I mentioned that earlier on. So if John only wants to see stories, for example, he can uncheck parent contributions and observations, and he'll only then see stories. Or he can look at observations, but instead of all of his observations, he can open them up with this down arrow, and he can say, I only want to see the observations linked to a specific framework, or actually, I only want to see my health and well-being observations, and he can do that there to filter that out. So it works really quite well, and it's easy for parents to see, to use. Whereas staff members had observation or story buttons at the top, parents add in their own contributions. And again, this is one of the things that was super helpful throughout lockdown period, especially for primary schools, but also for nurseries as well, because parents can come here and click on to add a parent contribution, and they can upload their own content from home. So home learning is obviously a huge area that has increased in importance over the last few months. So when they come to here, it's even more streamlined than a story is for staff. We've got the first thing that says, what's the contribution type? And we can select from a drop-down. Now you can create these yourselves in your own accounts. We, in our demonstration here, we've got achievements from home or wow moments, but it could be home learning or my family or whatever it would be. You can put that in here. And then you put in your description. So I'm going to do another low imagination one. So Alistair, or well, not Alistair, let's do, we all went camping. I don't know where this is coming from. All went camping at the weekend and climbed a mountain. Okay, good. They can have as much as in there as they want. They can upload photos too. Now they cannot upload videos. So you might get this question, or you might get asked by parents, why can I not upload a video? And the reason simply is because we found that in testing, when we first started doing this, that many parents were uploading videos or content that wasn't really specific to home learning or the nursery, and they're using it maybe just like a little mini YouTube for storing their own videos, and that's not really what the system is for, and the storage has an implication for us on things like cost and things. So we've limited parents only to be able to upload photos. But they can do that, and they can also attach files. So if you were to send home things like activity sheets, they could complete those, fill them out, color them in, whatever, and they can attach it here and send back to you. They can only publish it, and then we click on finish, and it takes them back into their profile. So really easy for a parent to complete. Once it's, yep, it's in here, and there's a picture of the kangaroo. The only other things parents can really do are look at things like their next steps, and they can convert their profile to a PDF at any time. so that when this child leaves, they can save everything that they've done and they can have it all there. They won't ever lose all their photos and their videos. That will all be in the system there for them. So there's what we see as parents, and it's really quite straightforward and simple for them. So I'll log out as my parent and log back in now as my nursery manager. So as I say, if anyone's got any questions at all, please just stick them into that Q&A section. Make sure I've got the right pin. There we go. Okay. So this is us log back in here. We've got what we call our dashboard, is the screen that everyone sees when they first log in. And you've got some stats. We just got a demonstration account, so your numbers will look very different to this. So it tells you how many observations you've got every week. Oh, good. The questions are coming in now. We'll get back to some of these in a second. Let me just explain this screen first. So we've got our dashboard. These numbers will change depending on what activity you've got. Down below, we've got a series of tabs. First one here says observations. And if we have a look, what we can see is all the recent activity that's taken place in the account. So we've got our observation, our story that we did for Alistair, which was taking part in a group activity, and we copied that over to the other children. Now, remember, we copied it over to Daniel and Graham and Davina and Charlie. Now, if we thought actually Davina didn't take part in this particular activity, we don't want that to be visible on her profile, we can just come over here to this column, the status column. It currently says published for Davina. We can change it from published to saved, and that means it's now no longer live on her profile. We could actually delete it from there if we want to as well, but we can go and we can do the same for Charlie. And you may, if some of you are only starting to use the system, you may be saying to your staff, please don't publish anything. I want you to all set it as save for later. And then a manager will come in and review it. And if that's the case, the manager could then come to this page, click on these preview buttons, and let's have a look and say, okay, let's see what this particular observation looks like. What does this observation look like? And it will show you a preview of the observation here. There it is. I'm happy with this. So I can now say that, yeah, I'm ready for that to go on Charlie's profile, change it from saved to published, and that's it live. The parents will receive a notification about published observations, but that doesn't come until later on in the evening, so it doesn't happen immediately. Okay, and there's our one for Alistair, our observation that we just did as well. And if we want to edit these, we can do that from here. Next to our observations tab is one called notifications, and this is a list of children, and a child appears in this list if they haven't had an observation in a certain period of time. Now the default, I think, is 7 days, and you can change that in your settings because 7 days is no time at all. And obviously as soon as holidays creep in, then you'll have every child on here. So it's not necessarily a bad thing on this list, although if it gets to 345 days, it probably is a bad thing. You can, if you want to, put in a reason for absence here, so you can say why they're off. There's no need to do that. Remember, this is only internal. Parents won't be seeing this. This is only for you. And you'll actually receive an email about this as part of a summary every week, just to keep you updated. So this is really useful for making sure there's no children have been missed out. Next to notifications are your parent interactions and your parent contributions. So anytime a parent comes and clicks on a thumbs up, the like button, or if you leave a comment, then it will appear here. And this is a really valuable tab because we've got 0 here because we don't have any real parents, but when you have real parents, you'll find that they interact so much more than if you were just using pen and paper, because they can now access this information at any time they want. We used to struggle with parents finding the time to come in and look at the folders and leaving comments, and of course now that's even more difficult because parents can't come into nurseries and schools. So giving them this access is even more important and valuable. When they add a contribution, you'll see we've got our parent contributions tab, and it says we've got a new one here. This is where all those parent contributions are found. And we can see the one that we just did. Remember our hill climbing one, or camping and hill climbing? Here it is with created by John. We can see it's got a cross here. That will remain a cross until a key person or teacher has looked at this, gone and viewed this observation, because you just want to be able to tell which parent contributions have been acknowledged or seen or whatever. So so this cross will go away. And we've got tabs also for next steps, for other reports, and for child activity. I'll maybe not go into those today. Okay, let's jump back into our children tab. Actually, sorry, I noticed there were some questions come in here, so let's see if I can get some of those away. We've got parents can see next steps. So Kelly's asked, can parents see next steps? Well, Kelly, yes, they can. Or you can turn that off, turn that ability on or off for them. If you don't want parents to see next steps, you can turn that on or off. So if we come to our configuration tab here, this is for managers. If you're not a manager, you can ask your manager to do this for you. If you come to the configuration tab, there's an option, a page called settings. And when we go in here, there's a whole raft of things that can tweak your account to the way you want it to work. And one of those is about next steps. So if we scroll down, where is it here? Next steps tracker parents. So this feature allows you to enable and disable the visibility of the next steps tracker for parents. So if you don't want parents to be able to see the next steps that you're working on, you would just change that to not visible and then click on save. Okay, hopefully that's easy enough and makes sense. We've got a question here. What was the difference between learning outcomes and progression pathways? Well, learning outcomes, depending on the framework you're on, these can actually vary. The example we had here was a curriculum for excellence, and in the curriculum for excellence, the learning outcomes are the same throughout the country of Scotland. They're the experiences and outcomes, and they're the same wherever you are. Progression pathways can be customized, and they can be different depending on your local authority or even from nursery to nursery. So progression pathways can be customized. Learning outcomes are standardized. However, if you want a completely bespoke curriculum or framework, something that works only for you guys, then we can add that too. So get in touch with us and we can help you those. Karen's asking, how do we transfer our nursery class over to our new P1 class? Well, this is actually something that can help everybody. So if I click on my children tab here, and this goes back to our rooms. Now, by default, you'll see what we call our room view. So here's our room view here, but there's another option, and it's really useful if you haven't seen this. Click on this list button, because this changes it from the room view into what we call list view, and it's a list of all the children here. And what we've got is a few different columns, curriculum, room, staff member, etc. And you can use these to move children between rooms or change key people. So at the moment, let's have a look for one of our, there's Jennifer here is in our baby room. You can see this. Now let's imagine Jennifer's moved from babies up to toddlers. We would just come over here, change her from babies, put her in toddlers, and that's her now in toddlers. And for your question, Karen, you'll have a primary one, you would just move them into primary one, and then the P1s go into P2s, etc. Hopefully that answers your question there. And the same for key people and staff. You can actually have, if you have any job share, you can, so we can, at the moment we're saying that Nicola's the only staff member for Amy here, but let's imagine that there's a job share there and we've got Haley. We'll add in Haley. So Nicola and Haley are now both key people for Amy. Hopefully that answers that one there. Sharon's saying, I can't see the purple parent contribution box. So Sharon, you won't see the parent contribution box until a parent has added a parent contribution. So that box just only appears after the first parent contribution is there. I've got a reports question from Joan. I'm going to go into reports towards the end. And then because that's a bit more in depth. So I'll come back to the reports question. Syndikia's back again. How come the what did I learn column was gone a few weeks ago? I'm not sure about that one, Syndikia. You're coming up with the tricky ones for me to answer. It shouldn't have been unless there was a particular bug in your account or whatever it would have been that day, but it should certainly be there. What did I learn should always be there. Jennifer's asking, there looks to be a second level curriculum. Is there facility for older pupils to add to this themselves? Yes, there is, Jennifer. So for those of you who are part of a primary school, older children can add in they can log in themselves and add in their own content. It's maybe not something I should go into because I think we're focusing more on nurseries here, but if I show you on our website, if I come down, if you come to our website and click on these webinars, this webinars button down the bottom, you should be able to see, we've got a primary school one over here that we did back in May. And I think I went into details about that. So come and have a look at that video, because that shows you how to set those up and what children can do and how they can add observations themselves. And this page is actually where, later on this afternoon, today's video will appear right here. Oh, the questions are just coming in. Sharon's come back again to ask, can you transfer to an external school as we are private? So yes, Sharon, so we have, you have the ability to, let's see, let's imagine that Amy's leaving us and she's moving on to another private nursery or another school that uses this system. So if they use the system, there's a really great feature in your configuration tab. I think I'm in, no, I'm not. Let's just go into it. Called transfer children down here. So you can use this to transfer children between nurseries and schools that already use the system. So what happens here is this. Now you can do this either at the end of the year with all children, or you can do it just whenever you want ad hoc. If one child's leaving, you can either start a new transfer out or accept a transfer in. Transfers need to be started by the nursery where the child is currently. So we would start a new transfer out, and all we've got to do is we need to know where it's going. So let's say we're going to, I'm making this up, so hopefully there isn't a Superstars nursery here. We're going to Superstars nursery and we need the email address that they're going to. So once we have that, we would then choose who's moving on. So we said it was Amy, didn't we? No, we need to put in a proper email address. And make sure you've got the correct email address and who it is here. And then you need to check this box, because once this transfer has been accepted, that child's profile won't be in your account anymore. So you'll need to make sure you've exported or downloaded or anything you want to keep a copy of. And then when you create a transfer here, what this does is we'll send an email to whoever you're transferring to. And in that email will be instructions about how they import that account. And the way that they would do that is they would then come to the same page, accept a transfer, and they will have in the email that's sent out, there's a big long code unique to them, looks something like this number here. They would put that number in there and copy and paste it, and then it imports all over. You can then assign the child to a room or a class, or to a staff member as well. So it's all instant, all works really well, and it's really smooth, saves you a lot of hassle. If, who was it that asked this question? Sharon, if they're moving to a nursery that doesn't use the system, then all you would really do is the same as what parents can do as well. So if we imagine that it was Alistair that's leaving, you can use this as a search box, by the way, guys, if you want to search for a staff member or a parent or a child. We would just come here and we would use this button here to convert his profile to a PDF. So what this does is it exports everything that we've done. You can actually choose to customize it. So we can, completely everything that we've done, or I can say, I only want to see the last 6 months of observations, for example. I only want to see observations, I don't want stories, and I don't want independent. So whatever you want, you can customize that, create that PDF, and then you could send that to the school. If the child's been with you for a long time, it might be quite a large file that you've got there. So you may need to either put that on the disk or whatever. But anyway, that would be how you would do that one there. Sandiki again has asked, can we add in another curriculum in learning? Sure. Can you add another curriculum? You're in Indonesia and wondering if we can add an Indonesian curriculum. Yeah, well, absolutely you can. So if you just get in touch with us, Sandiki, I'll give you all the contact details. Well, you should have them anyway, but get in touch with us and we can add that in. You just need to provide us what it is you need, and we can do that for you. So that's not a problem. So it's good to have somebody from so far away. Okay, one thing I haven't touched on yet is the tracking and monitoring. So let's go to that. So if we go to our children tab, you'll see there's a button here called cohort tracking. And this is how we access or monitor our tracking. Because every time you're adding an observation and you're adding in an outcome or an experience, you're building up a picture in the background of that child's learning and development. So you need to make a couple of selections here. So we're saying you got to choose your framework. So I'm going to say it's Curriculum for Excellence Hour level. You could choose a particular room if you want to, but this is just a demonstration account, so we don't have much children. So I'm just going to do it for everybody here. But if you want to, you can focus a little bit more. We can then run this report, and it gives you a very visual overview of ability and coverage. So a couple of things this is good for. So if we look at this, what we've got here, we've got our curricular areas along the top, and then we've got those organizers or those subheadings. So in numeracy and maths, they're split into 2D and 3D, angles and symmetry, etc. You can actually click on each of these columns to see the different outcomes that are there. So there they are. And we've got our children down the left-hand side as well. So what this is useful for, if we look at poor old Liz down the left-hand side, we can see here that under, for example, numeracy and literacy, which are two very important areas, the most important, we can see that Liz has got no experience of this part of the curriculum at all. Now, that might be expected. It may be Liz has just joined the nursery or the school, but it could be that she's been missed completely. So this flags this up to you, and you can then take action based on that. Something similar is, if you look down literacy in English, underneath writing and organising, what we can see here is that only 2 children have got any experience in this part of the framework. And again, this might be okay, this might be going to plan, but what we could do, we have an opportunity here because we could click on our column for writing and organising. There's the outcome that relates or incorporates that. And what we could do is we could then create an activity or a topic or design a project around this outcome. And then we could even take a whole class observation all at once. And that would give us evidence that all these children have had evidence in this part of experience in this part of the framework. So it's a really useful way to increase coverage of a certain part of the curriculum. It's bang up to date. So this is the 13th of August as of today. What you might want to do though, you could create a PDF of this. So you can create you could print it out if you really wanted to, but you can come up to this box here that says all time and click on custom date. And let's say we want to look at what did this group of children look like back in the past. So I could go back to, I've gone quite far there, September 2017. And if we run this report, we can see it's a lot emptier compared to what it was like before. And if we compare what it looks like from 13th of August 2020 to the 7th of September 2018, we would then be able to say, well, look where they were back in September 18, look where they are now. We can demonstrate we've got an increasing coverage and ability for these children and our progress for the nursery as a whole. So a really useful way for you to just show it, evidence at a couple of clicks that you're monitoring and you're aware of progression. Alison's come up with a question here, can we share with a school nursery a child's profile, so a split placement? So Alison, at the moment, no, we're not able to do that. It's one of these things about who has access to it, and at the moment we can't give access to outside settings to a particular nursery or school. It's something we're always concerned about, how do we get around that, but we just haven't done that yet. We'll continue to think about that, and maybe it'll be a feature that we get to in the future. But at the moment, if a child's in one nursery for part-time and another nursery for the other part of the time, they would have to have separate profiles. So. Okay, the last thing I want to focus on just now, and then we'll come back to the reports for whoever it was that asked that, is the messages section. So this is kind of new, only in the last few months. What we have here is, you come into the message section and you can turn this on or off for staff. So it could just be managers that have access to this, but if you want to, you can make it visible to everybody. But if you remember, when we take an observation or a story, the parent is notified about that in the evening. So it goes out a bit later. There might be times when you want to communicate something to the parents immediately. And this is what you would use messages for. So we come into messages and all your old messages are here, but let's create a new message. And let's say that it's going to be our newsletter for August. You put your content in here, or if you want to, you can actually attach files. So if you had your newsletter, in this case, is a Word document or whatever you have, you can attach them here. And then you come to choose recipients down the bottom. And when you get to this stage, you could say, well, I want to send it to every single parent in my nursery, or actually I only want to send it to the parents in the 3 to 5 room, or even more, you can drill down even more, and you can list the parents in the 3 to 5 room and say, I only want to send it to the parents of Anya, Amy, and Isabel, for whatever reason, but it gives you that option. And this message goes out immediately. Once it's sent, you can't recall it, so make sure that it's just, consider it like an email, it's gone, and the parent could read that. Mesh has been so useful again over lockdown periods and while nurseries have been closed, because it's just an extra way to communicate, and it's free. There's no extra cost for this. You can send as many messages through this system as you want. If the parent uses the parent app, they'll get the notification that would appear on their phone, but they'll also get an email as well. So if they're not using the app, they can still get access to these messages. Let's see. Oh, there's the chat box there. A couple of other questions have come in here then. So we've got Emma, I didn't see this one earlier on, sorry. Hope you've been hanging on for this because it was in the chat. Next year, the EYFS is changing. Will you be updating it, or will it be a new curriculum? So Emma, yeah, we've actually been talking about this week, and we are going to make changes to, as far as we're aware, and you can maybe guide me on this, because we really take guidance on all curricular information from the people who use it. But it's the early learning goals section on the EYFS that's going to be changing. And for the early adopters, I'm not sure if you're one of those early adopters, I think that guidance is out now, and we should have that up for the end of the week with those new ELG sections. And you should see that in your existing EYFS. So this will be a bit of trial and error. So if this is exactly what you need, then that's great. But if we need to tweak it further, then we can. But yeah, the system is really flexible, so we'll manage it whatever way works best for the nurseries that are on the EYFS. Okay. Karen's just come back about a question about notifications. How are parents notified of new observations? It's usually via an email. If they've got the app, they will get a notification. So like one of these things that pops up. We don't do texts. Maybe it's something that we'll get to, but at the moment it's just either emails and notifications through the app. So that's how they find out about either observations or messages that come through to them. Sandikia again from Indonesia is asking about translation tools. So you've got some teachers who are not fluent in English. And I know that's actually the case in the UK here as well, because some parents are not, English isn't their first language. So there's no translation tool built in to the system. And it's very difficult for us because there's the meaning, if we were to have an automatic translation tool built in, there's no guarantee that what you mean when it's translated is what is actually translated into that other language. So I don't think we will have any sort of automatic translation available. We could guide you to things like Google Translate, but we can't really take any responsibility for the accuracy of those translations. And it would, there may be some situations where you'd be using the system where it's important to have, an accurate translation, and any issue could cause issues if they are, if it's not translated correctly. We've got a Donalda who's raised a hand. I don't know if you want to stick a question in there. If you've got one, then we can certainly do that in the Q&A or the chat. Okay, let's go to reports, because that was a question that somebody asked and I've now forgotten who it was. You know who you were anyway. Oh, it's Joan. Joan McKenna was asking about reports. I'll quickly go into that because it can get quite in depth. But let's imagine there's two types of reports you can do. If we go back to Alistair's profile, and I'll give you an idea. So on each child's profile, there's a reports button, and you can access your reports from your configuration tab here. Let's see, we'll go to Alistair's. Oh, there it is there. So there's a reports button here. Now in my demonstration account, I've already got a couple of reports set up. You can see we've got one called a 2-year progress check, and we've got end of year or end of terms. I'll go and complete these again just so you can see what they look like. So I'm going to go just to see how you would set these up. Let's go with our end of year summary first of all. Oh, there's the content we need to do first of all, sorry about that. So I'm going to edit these and just remove them completely just so we can see what they look like. I'm going to delete that. And then I'm going to delete this one. So the two different types of reports we've got, as I say, dynamic or upload. Where you would use an upload report would be in that, for example, in this one here. So let's imagine we're setting this one up. We've got a new report. We're calling it a 2-year progress check. And in this case, you're going to have a template. So perhaps your local authority, and this could be used for things like transitions, or there may be other administration things that your local authority require you to do, or you maybe just got this within your own nursery. But say they've got a Word template for a 2-year progress check. Our upload report allows you to upload that template to the system. And we've got a current template uploaded here. So let's leave that one in place. And when we set up our report here, we can choose which rooms to apply this report to. So at the moment, this report is going to be active for all terms for all rooms, actually for a 3 to 5 room only. But if we want to, we could add it for all rooms. So I'll just remove that. So it's all rooms and it's all terms. So when we go to a child's profile now, Alistair here, and we look at his reports, we can see that the 2-year progress check is here. Now we can complete this report, and what that will do is it will allow us to download the reports template. We could then download that template, which I think is a Word document. And yep, 2-year progress check, we would fill all that out. And then we would upload that report, and it can be any one of these types of files. And you can choose to allow the child's parent to view this report as well. So if you check this box, when the parent logs in, they would be able to access this report through here. So you could use this for any number of things. Now, the other option that we've got, if we come back to our reports tab here, is to, if we add a new report in, it was a, let's imagine we're doing an end of term summary. End of term summary. And this one's going to be an upload. So sorry, dynamic. So we've already done the upload. We're going to do a dynamic one as well. You can usually ignore these, but if you want to set a specific number of times this report can be completed, you can do that here. But we're just going to activate this one. And we then need to complete this report, set this report up a little bit further, because we need to add in our questions. So our headings or our questions would be things like literacy, if we can spell that correctly, numeracy, and let's just do teacher's comment. So you might have more than this, but. So that report's available. Well, we can set it up. Let's do our end term summary. And again, if you want to say, I only want this active in the baby room or the toddler room, I can do that, or I only want it to be set for 1 term or whatever. But let's go back to Alistair. And what we should see now is in his reports, we've got, sorry, in his account, we've got, in this reports button, we've got the option for an end of term summary now. And what we could do is when we complete this, we've now got these headings that we'd added in. So you can add in as many of these as you want. Hopefully that makes sense to you now. And we could then add in commentary from the teacher to say that this term we saw real progress, etc. You can have as much of that in there as you want. I spelled progress wrong. And you can put in for numeracy and the teacher's comment too. And again, you can choose whether you want the child's parents to be able to see that. And when we save this report, it just means it's visible to the, it's saved and it's visible to the parents now, and they can then see that when they log in. Not everyone uses these reports. It's not something for everybody. This is what it looks like when it's completed, and you can print this out and save it and everything. So that's how reports would work. If Joan, if you need any further help with that, do get in touch with us and we can certainly do that. Okay, I think we're coming to the end of that. I think I've managed to get through all the questions. If there's anyone who hasn't had one answered, let me know. But while we are, while I quickly have you, if you ever do need help or you're unsure of how something works, then what you can do is you can click on your face up in the top right here, and there's a help section. And if you come here, you can, there's some frequently asked questions down below. But what you can do is you can ask for help by typing a question or a message into this box here, and that sends an email to us, and we're usually pretty quick to get back to you on that. Also, another way is if we go back to our website. On our website here, we have our phone number, so you can always phone us and get in touch with us that way. And there's also various contact ways to get in contact forms and things, or we've got a live chat down the bottom here. So you can send a message, and we're usually active on the phone and during the working days. If you, those are the best ways to get in touch with us. And for those of you who are not already using the system, and if you were just trying to find out a bit more, we obviously still offer a free trial. So you can click on the screen button at the top for how to create a free trial. Fill out this form, that'll give us everything we need, and then you're up and running. We do have some other products. For those of you in private nurseries, we've got some other products coming soon. We've got our HR system, which will launch at the end of this month. And then that'll be followed by a finance one. So finance will be things like invoicing parents and blah, blah, blah. So save you heaps and heaps of work. And the HR one is for staff holders. So this will come first, and it's going to be free for the first few months because we'll still be getting some feedback from everybody on how it all works. But that's quite exciting. That's going to be there. But thank you very much, everybody, for coming along. Let me know if there's anything else we can do. If you want to share this with colleagues, check back to our webinars page later on this afternoon. We'll have this up here in this section here, webinar for August. It'll be there, and you can then share that with everybody. Great. Well, thank you very much again, everybody. And we'll be doing another one of these in September, I think. So if you can come back to us on there. But great to have everybody back and kids back in schools and nurseries. Certainly as a parent, I am really enjoying having the kids back in school. So, okay, thanks very much, everyone. We'll see you all again.